My parents' house. Part 1. My girlfriend and I found out the hard way why my father doesn't allow smoking in the house. Jesus Christ, Bill. It's like 19 degrees out here. I'm fucking freezing. Can't we just smoke inside? Melinda asked, shivering, practically hotboxing her cigarette. You see, Melinda is my girlfriend. We've been together almost 3 years now. She has met my parents before, but this is the first time she has ever been to their house. Now, as I was saying, Melinda is a couple inches shorter than me, slightly chubby, with fire engine red hair, ocean blue eyes, and pouty lips. She is absolutely beautiful. I, on the other hand, look like John Heater when he played Napoleon Dynamite, except I have bushy brown hair. I don't know what the attraction is, but I'm glad for it. She says that I have a great sense of humor, and that I make her laugh all the time. So, maybe that's it. But you don't really care about that, do you? Anyway, I looked at her, and sternly answered, no. Dad's rule. Why the hell not? He's not even here. She said, slightly agitated, smiled, then batted those beautiful little puppy dog eyes at me. I melted inside. I took a deep breath, sighed, then answered, let's finish our smokes, go back inside, and I'll tell you why. Okay, fine, she answered, bouncing up and down to stay warm, I guess. We finished our smokes, tapped them out on the bottoms of our shoes, and tossed them into the old coffee can that my father keeps on the back step. My father also smokes. He used to smoke a pipe, but now he smokes cigarettes. Anyway, Melinda and I are house sitting for my parents this weekend. They're in Atlantic City, at some casino, and are staying there until sometime tonight. Now, the house that I'm referring to is an old colonial-style house, painted white, with black shutters. It was built in 1839, around the time when indoor plumbing was made possible. The house is 3 stories high, and consists of a large living area, with a beautiful picture window, overlooking the backyard, a decent-sized dining room, an industrial-size kitchen, with a back door leading to the backyard. For some reason, there's a 2-foot space on the side wall of the kitchen, that appears to have been boarded up, as the piece of wood sticks out further than the wall on either side of it. There's also a good-sized parlor, with a fireplace, for which my mother and father turned into their bedroom, a full bath, under the staircase, and a huge laundry area, with 3 massive washing machines, and 3 equally massive dryers. And that's just on the first floor. The second and third floors are exactly the same. Exactly. You get to the top of the stairs, and there is a little foyer area to your left, and a small quote-unquote bedroom on your right, with a long dark hallway in front of you. There are 6 very small bedrooms on each side of the hallway, totaling 13 rooms per floor, so that's 26 bedrooms in all. All of the bedroom doors have a 10-inch by 10-inch square window in it, at eye level. It's kind of creepy, especially at night. Anyway, there's a shared bathroom, with 3 shower units, at the end of the hallway, with a staircase on the right-hand side of the second floor leading to the third floor. My room was the first room on the right on the second floor. I put a Kiss poster over the window in my door. I used to grab my sleeping bag and camp out in the other rooms sometimes. Seriously, the place is huge. I had so much fun, as a kid up there, playing hide and seek with my friends, or just running around. Now, the house sits directly in the center of town, on the corner of Elm Street and Chestnut Street. Millie's bookstore, the Sellrite real estate agency, and Larry's Liquors are all in a strip mall that sits directly across the street from the house. Chestertown High School sits to the right of the house, as you're looking at it. Barnaby's is just down the street, and Dead Man's Lane is just about a mile away from there. There are many other businesses around the house. Now, I know what you're thinking, why is there a house in the middle of town? Well, that's where it gets interesting. But, more on that later. Anyway, back to the story. Like I said, Melinda and I finished our cigarettes, and threw the butts in the can. We then went back inside. We took off our jackets and laid them on the back of 2 different chairs in the dining room, which is just off the kitchen. Melinda then took a seat at the table, while I fixed myself a Keurig cup of coffee, and her a Keurig cup of hot chocolate, with a handful of those tiny marshmallows, that we brought from home. You can't have hot chocolate without marshmallows. Am I right? Anyway, I carried both cups to the table, and sat them down. I then took a seat directly across from Melinda. I took a drink of my coffee, and began to speak. I've never told this story to anyone, babe, so please bear with me, as you might know some of it already. She nodded her head, and held my hand. I took a deep breath, exhaled, then continued. My parents bought this house in 1979, dirt cheap, according to my father. I was 11 years old. I don't know why they decided to buy such a big house, with all this unused space, but they did. Now, as you know, my father is a gambler. He never had a bookie, or owed thousands of dollars to anyone. But he did like to play poker. He would hold a poker game, with all his poker buddies, every other Saturday night, the night after payday. My mother would hang out in their bedroom, while the game was going on, and I would be the quote-unquote, runner. You know, getting beers for dad and the guys, and emptying ashtrays. I said. Now, again, I know what you're thinking, ashtrays. I thought your father didn't allow smoking in the house. Well, you see, he did allow it, up until that fateful Saturday night. What happened that night changed everything forever. Anyway, I took another drink of my coffee, and continued with what I was saying. Along with getting beers, and emptying ashtrays, I would also fill up the pretzel bowl, gather the empty beer cans. Things like that. Anyway, Dad gave me $20 before each game, for doing so, in case he lost all his money. Which rarely ever happened, but just in case. Anyway, it was the first Saturday night after we got settled in. One by one, all Dad's poker buddies arrived. It was always the same four guys. Pat, the owner of Barnaby's. He was an older gentleman, with short gray hair. Mitchell, a guy my father worked with. He was short, with red hair. He talked really fast, and had a nasally voice. Then there was Dennis, one of our old neighbors. He was African American, and built like a brick shithouse. This guy had muscle. And last, but not least, there was, hell, I never even knew his name. Everyone just called him Dirt. He was a huge, 300-pound truck driver. He looked mean, but he was cool as hell. He would slip me $1 or $2, every now and then. I got 5, if he won a big hand. I don't know how he knew my father. Anyway, my mother then said goodnight to everyone, as the game usually got over about 1 in the morning, kissed my father, then retired to their bedroom. I got to stay up until 11, given the fact that I didn't have school the next day. After that, everyone was on their own. It was the end of April, or was it May? I don't know. I can't really remember. Anyway, it was close to summer. My mother had opened all the windows in the dining room, where they played, and turned the ceiling fan on low, before everyone arrived, as it was nice outside, and to let all the smoke out. The game started, and everything was going good. So, there they were, drinking, smoking, cursing, playing cards, and having a good old time. I was doing my duties as a runner, taking sips of the beers before I brought them out, eating pretzels, and spending quality time with my dad, if you can call it that. Now, the game started about 7 o'clock, I'd say. It was about 9:30, when everything went to shit. I had just emptied one of the ashtrays, and brought Dirt a beer, when my father announced that he folded, and had to use the bathroom. He packed his pipe. He smoked a pipe back then. He put it in his mouth, lit it, then headed to the bathroom, as the hand played on. I was just standing there watching them play. A couple minutes went by, when I heard my father scream, the most ear-piercing, blood-curdling, terrified-sounding scream that I have ever heard, even to this day. It scared the shit out of me. Everyone, including myself, took off running in the direction of the scream, toward the bathroom. The sound of poker chips hitting the floor filled the air, as their knees hit the bottom of the table, as they all stood up quickly. I was the closest, so I arrived first. Now, one of my father's rules in the house was always knock on the bathroom door before entering. He made that rule after walking in on my mother's mother, as she was getting out of the shower, when my grandparents were visiting us at our old house. She was really pissed, my father was embarrassed, and I couldn't stop laughing. I got a week's restriction for that one, I said. Melinda then chuckled. I continued by saying, but, on that night, I ignored that rule. Now, before I tell you what happened, let me explain something first. Anyone that has ever smoked a pipe, or knows someone that smokes a pipe, knows that pipes give off a lot of smoke, and the downstairs bathroom, although it is a full bathroom, is really small, compared to today's standards. It has no windows, and no exhaust fan. The place was built in 1839, remember? Anyway, I burst through the door, screaming Dad. A huge cloud of smoke hit me in the face, as it was sucked out through the door, causing me to cough, as I didn't start smoking until I was 17. Peer pressure is a son of a bitch. Anyway, I composed myself, and turned to see my father, sitting on the toilet, with his pants below his knees, hanging his head. I quickly grabbed a towel off the shelf to cover him up. The others arriving shortly after, gathering in the doorway, including my mother. Ron, you okay, Z-Man? You alright? What happened? I don't need to see this. They all said in unison. Dad, are you okay? I asked, squatting down to his level, and putting my hand on his right shoulder. Let me through. My mom said loudly, pushing past the others. They all stepped out of the way, then gathered back around the door. Once she was in, "Ron, what's going on? Talk to me," she said, standing over us, and leaning on the sink. My father then slowly lifted his head, eyes wide with fear, and said stuttering, as he always does when he's nervous, Did you see them?" Nervously looking around. "See who, hon?" my mother asked. My father then quickly grabbed her arm, as he looked her straight in the eye, and whispered nervously, The faces in the smoke. Yeah, right. I don't believe in ghosts, or all that paranormal stuff," Melinda said dismissively. "Well, I believe my father," I responded. "Have you ever seen a face in the smoke?" she said sarcastically. "No. My father didn't allow smoking in the house after that. My mom even has to open all the windows in the dining room and the kitchen, turn on the exhaust fan over the stove, and the ceiling fan in the dining room when she cooks, in case something burns, and creates smoke, even in the winter," I answered. "That's a little extreme," she said. "Dad's rule," I responded. "Hold on. Let me finish." She just looked at me, as I continued. "What are you talking about, Ron? Did you hit your head?" my mother asked. He just looked at her. "Let's get you out of here, Dad," I said, standing up, and motioning for the others to clear a path, which they did. My mother then helped my father up off the toilet, as I walked out of the door, shutting it behind me. After a few seconds, my parents exited the bathroom, as we all stood in the hallway. Game's over. Everyone go home," he said, still stuttering. No one said a word, or even hesitated. They all just quickly grabbed their stuff and left. "Later on, hope you feel better, Z. See you in 2 weeks, man. We'll talk at work," they all said in unison once again. "Our last name starts with the letter Z, that's why Dirt always called him Z. Anyway, we're not staying here," my father announced, finally calming down. "Bill, go upstairs, and pack a bag. Your mom and I will do the same. 20 minutes. In the car. Go." I did as I was told. I grabbed a trash bag from the kitchen, ran upstairs, threw some clothes in it, ran back downstairs, and out to the car. My parents arrived shortly after. We all got in the car, and Dad drove to the local flop house, where we rented a room for the night. Well, actually 2 rooms. I got one, and my parents got the other. Anyway, the next morning, while having breakfast at Chelsea's restaurant, my parents said that since they sunk all their money into buying that house, there was no money left to rent a place, so we had no choice but to live in the house. That is when my father made the no smoking rule. When we got back to the house, Dad put that old coffee can outside, and smoked out there ever since. "Well, that's the reason why," I said. Melinda just looked at me. She squeezed my hand, and said, "Bill, you know I love you, but that has got to be the most craziest insane story that I've ever heard. You can believe it if you want to. It's getting late, I'm going to bed." She let go of my hand, got up, and began walking toward the living room. We slept on the hideaway bed in there. If you don't know what a hideaway bed is, look it up. I've got a story to tell. Now, as she walked away, she began laughingly talking to herself. "Faces in the smoke. That's crazy," leaving me sitting there at the table, surprised that she didn't believe me. After a minute or so, I got up, put our cups in the sink, turned off all the lights, locked all the doors, then went to the living room. The bed was already pulled out, as we slept there the night before, and didn't bother to put it back. Anyway, Melinda had already changed into her nightgown, and was lying in bed, with her back to me, reading a book. I kicked off my shoes, and took off my pants, as I always sleep in my boxers and t-shirt. I then climbed in bed, facing Melinda's back. She then rolled over, kissed me, and said, "I love you, Bill, and I'm sorry if I upset you. But, I just don't believe in that stuff." "It's okay, babe. You don't have to," I responded. She kissed me again, and snuggled in on my shoulder, and put her left leg over mine. I put my arm around her waist, and we fell asleep like that. I was startled awake, just as the sun was rising, by the smoke detectors going off, and Melinda screaming bloody murder, coughing, and screaming my name all at the same time. I found out later that she decided to make me breakfast in bed, didn't open the windows, or turn on either of the fans. Something that had fallen to the bottom of the oven, however long ago, had began to burn when she was baking the biscuits, causing the whole kitchen to be engulfed in smoke. She said she tried to open the windows, before the smoke got too bad, but they were frozen shut, and wouldn't open. Anyway, I jumped out of bed, and ran like a wild man toward the sound of the screams. The kitchen. Melinda, Melinda, I screamed, as I ran. I reached the swinging door between the dining room and the kitchen, and burst through it, into a massive cloud of smoke. I began coughing violently, as the smoke filled my lungs. The smoke was so thick, that you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. Melinda, where are you? I screamed, then coughed. Over here. She screamed back, from over by the refrigerator, and coughed as well. I rubbed my eyes, and responded, I'm coming. I then heard her scream 4 little words that no one ever wants to hear their loved ones scream. Get away from me. Followed by, Bill, help. She then coughed again. I took a step toward the refrigerator, and that is when the moaning began, and they started to appear to the left of me, but I guess they were appearing to Melinda before they appeared to me. Now, yet again, I know what you're thinking, it was the faces. Well, if you are thinking that, then you are totally, absolutely, and definitely wrong. It wasn't faces. No, it was full-bodied figures, appearing in the smoke, with arms, legs, a torso, and a head, with no faces. The moaning grew louder with each passing second, as more figures appeared. The moans mixing with the sound of the smoke detectors blaring away, made it nearly intolerable. What the fuck? I screamed, totally scared shitless. I coughed, then ran toward Melinda, who was constantly screaming at that point, followed by more coughing. With the thick cloud of smoke making it nearly impossible to see, and my eyes burning from it, I ran into one of the bar stools that was positioned around the island, and fell hard to the floor, my left arm extending out, and touching a foot. The foot then began kicking violently at my hand. Melinda, stop, it's me, I screamed, as I scrambled to my hands and knees, coughed, and crawled over to where she was sitting. I sat up, and leaned my back against the refrigerator as well. Melinda fearfully grabbed my hand tight. What's happening? She screamed. I tried to tell you. I responded, we gotta get out of here. The door is right over there, I said, and looked to my right, seeing nothing but smoke. On 3, I continued. 1, 2, 3. We both then attempted to get up, but that did not happen. Just as we lifted up off the floor, the figures began to surround us. Just to give you a visual, it looked like the last scene of the Michael Jackson video for the song Thriller, where the zombies are all gathering around the girlfriend. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've already seen that video. But if you haven't, go check it out, it's on YouTube. Anyway, as the figures surrounded us, the moaning stopped, and the air became bitter cold. We screamed in unison, as just one of the figure's arms reached out. Its hand gently touched me on my left shoulder. Now, since Melinda and I were holding hands, I assume that is why what happened next happened to both of us. Immediately after the touch, Melinda and I were, for lack of a better term, transported back in time. Back to a time when the house was what it was originally intended to be. We were both standing, hand in hand, just inside the living room area, which was a rec room back then, if you could call it that. A small radio sat on a table in the corner, playing nothing but static, with empty chairs surrounding the table. 2 guys, dressed in dirty ripped hospital gowns, were playing ping pong I assumed, at a square wooden table, with no net, no paddles, and no ball. They were just going through the motions, and giggling as they did. A middle-aged woman, also in a dirty ripped hospital gown, sat in a chair facing the corner, mumbling to herself, and rocking back and forth. There were 2 women, dressed in vintage nurses' uniforms, standing on either side of the room, arms crossed, with a mean look on their faces. It was quite shocking to see. I blinked my eyes, and suddenly we were standing in the second-floor doorway at the top of the stairs. The air smelled like urine and feces. Melinda threw up on the floor, the vomit then began absorbing into the floor, and just disappeared, like it never happened. What the fuck? I thought. I looked to my left to see that what is now a foyer area, was a nurse's station back then. A group of about 4 nurses, and a guy that looked like an NFL linebacker were gathered in that area. The linebacker guy wore an orderly's outfit. For some strange reason, all the nurses looked like Annie Wilkes, you know, the Kathy Bates character from the Stephen King movie Misery. I looked back to Melinda, as she was wiping her mouth off with the sleeve of her nightgown. Just past Melinda, I saw what was my bedroom door. It had a sign on it that read, "Treatment Room." There was a red curtain on the outside of the door, covering the square window. Desperate screams of anguish and pain filled the air, as 2 nurses that were each carrying a tray with little white cups on it, opened and closed the patient room doors. We then began slowly walking past the nurses' station into the hallway, well, more like gliding, as our feet never left the floor. I looked to my left. Melinda looked to her right. Through each of the little square windows in the doors, I saw men, women, and teenagers, dressed in nothing but those dirty, ripped hospital gowns. A few of them looked to be soiled as well. The rooms were also dirty, with mold on the ceilings, the walls, and the floors. The people inside the rooms were screaming, hitting themselves in the face, pulling their hair out, and banging their heads against the walls. In the room at the end of the hall, on the right, there was a guy wearing a red helmet on his head, strapped down, with leather straps, in a metal chair, shaking, and twitching, trying to escape. It was horrifying. Each room had a small metal bed, and a little white bucket in the corner. I don't even want to think about what the bucket was for. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Melinda screamed, but the scream had no depth, no pitch, and no echo. It was flat. I just looked at her. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw what she was screaming at. From out of the bathroom at the end of the hall, came a completely naked man, soaking wet, running at top speed, directly toward us, screaming, "I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy." I threw my back against the wall on the left. Melinda threw her back against the wall on the right, as the man ran in between us, with the nurse following close behind. I turned my head to the right, to see him running toward the nurse's station. The big linebacker guy jumped over the desk, grabbed the guy, and slammed him into the treatment room door, punched him a few times, then carried his unconscious body back to his room, which was right beside where Melinda was standing. He opened the door, and tossed the poor man down to the floor, hard, like a wet sack of potatoes. Melinda then screamed another flat scream. The guy didn't even react to her scream. It was like he didn't even hear it. I then tried to move myself off the wall, but soon realized that I couldn't. It was like I was stuck to it with crazy glue. Melinda was too. We both screamed flat screams in unison, as we were slowly sucked into the wall. The pain was excruciating. Everything went black at that point, but I was still conscious. I stopped screaming, and called out, "Melinda, Melinda," over, and over, and over again, into the darkness. The next thing I knew, my vision slowly started to return. As it did, I discovered that I was standing in the corner of what appeared to be a dimly lit, very unsterile operating room. Cobwebs and dirt caked to the large light fixture in the ceiling. There was a man standing beside an old metal surgical table, wearing a dirty, blood-soaked surgical gown. He wore no head covering, no mask, and no gloves, and looked just like Mitch Pileggi when he played Assistant Director Skinner on The X-Files. He was sweating profusely. He held what looked like an ice pick in one hand, and a small hammer-like tool in the other. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. It was at that point that I noticed a patient lying unconscious on the table. With a closer look, I realized that the patient was Melinda. "No!" I screamed, and attempted to charge him. I ran as fast as I could, but I wasn't getting anywhere. It was like I was running on a treadmill. "Stop, Melinda, no!" I screamed, as he looked at her, placed the ice pick in the corner of her right eye socket, and raised the hammer high into the air. Suddenly, he raised his head, looked straight at me, and said loudly, "We got to," stepped back, hung his head, and burst into flames. The wall behind him burst into flames as well. I started screaming, "Help! Help!" I then saw Melinda's body raise quickly in the air, all by itself, and go directly through the ceiling. Seconds later, my body was lifted up as well, by an unseen force, and shot through the ceiling. Everything went black again. "Over here. We need EMTs. Now," I heard a deep raspy voice say, as my body was slammed down hard. Hey buddy, wake up," the voice said. Then I felt a few light taps to my face. I groggily came to, lying in the grass, coughing, freezing, and staring directly in the eyes of a fireman. "There you are. Welcome back," he said. "Can I get a blanket over here?" I was confused. I looked to my left to see Melinda, lying in the grass, in the backyard, covered in a blanket, with an oxygen mask over her face. "Melinda," I yelled, as she turned her head in my direction. I scrambled to my hands and knees, throwing off the blanket, and quickly crawled over to her. The female EMT that was tending to Melinda, then put her arm up to stop me. "She's fine. It's just procedure," she said. "Get him a mask too, please." And they did. Melinda and I then spent the next 30 minutes or so, wrapped in our blankets, and getting treated for smoke inhalation. We were cleared and released. The EMTs left, and so did the fire department, after giving us the okay to re-enter the house. Apparently, the ADT security system that my parents had installed last year alerts 911 of a possible fire if the smoke detectors go off. I need one of those things at my house, I thought. Anyway, I spoke to the fireman that saved me, right before he left. I asked him if he saw anything in the smoke when he entered the house. He just looked at me funny. Now, with everyone gone, Melinda and I sat on the back step, wrapped in our blankets. The fire department let us keep them as souvenirs, I guess. The morning sun making it a little bit warmer than last night. It was still cold, but it was tolerable. I really need a cigarette, Melinda said, knowing that our smokes were in the house, and knowing that I really didn't want to go back in there. But I didn't want to look like a wuss in front of Melinda more. It was time to man up. I could use about 2 or 3 of them, I said, and reluctantly went back in the house, got both our smokes. She smokes menthol, I smoke regular, grabbed our jackets, then walked back outside. As I handed her her smokes and her jacket, she began to cry. She then took off the blanket and put on her jacket. She turned to me, as I took off my blanket, put on my jacket, and sat down. The blankets laying at our feet. Melinda then said, with tears in her eyes, "Bill, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I don't know what happened, and I don't want to know. I'm so sorry. I believe you now." I put my arm around her, and pulled her close to me. She then put her head on my shoulder. "It's okay, babe. All that matters is that you're okay," I said. As we finished our smokes, Melinda turned to me and said, "I don't want to go back in there." "You don't have to," I responded. "I'll clean up, gather our things, and straighten up the house. You can wait in the car, if you want to. Here's the keys." I then handed them to her. I keep the car keys in my jacket pocket, in case you were wondering how I had them. Anyway, she got up, and walked around the side of the house, to the driveway, where the car was parked. I took a deep breath, exhaled, then went back inside. I opened all the windows, wiped down all the walls, the cabinets, the stove, and everything in the kitchen, gathered our things. After putting on my pants, as I was still in my boxers, I folded up the bed, put the cushions back on, shut the windows, locked the doors, and carried all of our stuff to the car, including the blankets. Melinda had fallen asleep, in the passenger seat, with the car running, and the heat on. I opened the back door, startling her awake. I then handed her a change of clothes, as she was still in her nightgown. She got changed right there in the passenger seat. Anyway, I put our stuff in the back seat, and got in the car. It was nice and warm in there. Not wanting to sit in the car all day, Melinda and I decided to research the house a little bit at the local library. I'm not sure why my parents didn't research the house after the bathroom incident, but I guess it was hard to do back then, given the fact that there was no internet. Anyway, on our way to the library, we stopped off at the coffee shop across the street from Barnaby's. I got a large coffee, and Melinda got a large hot chocolate, like usual. We then went to the library. We walked in, and immediately went to the computer area. Now, although I look like I should be good with computers, I am not. However, Melinda is a computer genius. She sat down in the rolling chair, hit a couple keys on the keyboard, and bam! The full history of the house popped up on the screen. Do you really want to know the history of the place? Yeah, of course you do. So, here goes. As I said earlier, the house was built in 1839, but it was not intended to be a house. It was originally built as the Chestertown Psychiatric Hospital, in layman's terms, an insane asylum. The hospital was in operation from 1839 until a fire destroyed the entire facility in 1908. Many speculate that the fire was started by a patient, who somehow got a hold of a book of matches. No one really knows. All 54 patients died in the fire. Now, remember, the house only has 26 rooms, so where did the other 28 patients sleep? Wait a minute. Maybe there's a basement. Yeah, that must be why that one wall in the kitchen doesn't line up right. They boarded up the entrance to the basement. I can only imagine what kind of fucked up shit happened down there. It scares the shit out of me, and intrigues me at the same time. Screw it. The next time my parents go away, I'm going to remove the piece of wood, and see what's behind it. Anyway, like I was saying, 9 of the 12 nurses, the one and only doctor, and both of the orderlies perished as well. The surviving 3 nurses were scheduled off the day of the fire. During its years of operation, there were multiple claims of neglect, abuse, physical, sexual, and mental, dehydration, starvation, misuse of drugs, and many other allegations, by the families of nearly all the patients. After the fire, the property sat vacant for 2 years, at which time it was purchased by the church, who completely rebuilt the structure, using the original blueprints, and used it as a halfway house for its Recovering Addicts program. From 1910 until 1965. After the death of Father Thomas, the director of the program, in 1965, the church decided to do away with the program, as they saw his death to be a sign from God, sending many addicts back out on the street. Since then, the house has been used as a nursing home, a brothel, and a hotel, from 1965 until it was purchased by my father in 1979. Melinda then printed out all the information she could find on the house, then we left. We decided that we did not want to go back to the house, so since we are both animal lovers, we went to the zoo. I was one number shy of a winning ticket. Oh well, maybe one day I'll get to see the new animals. We left the zoo, stopped at that creepy little gas station on the edge of town, and filled up with gas. It was about 5:30 at that point. My parents said they'd be home around 6, so we're in the car, in the driveway, waiting for them to arrive. Melinda fell asleep in the passenger seat again. It's cool though, she had a rough day. Besides, she looks so peaceful when she sleeps. Anyway, with nothing better to do, I decided to share this story with all of you. I hope you liked it. I can't wait to tell my parents what happened to us, and show them all the information we found. Oh, hey, here they come now. Hey mom, hey dad.